Okay, greetings. Welcome. My name is Galen Bolt. I'm the interim superintendent here at Johnson County Central, and want to welcome you to an informational meeting here about the future of our school district. We've got some folks here in the audience tonight that we want to recognize. Where are our Board of Education members? I know we've got several here tonight. Would you stand, please? Board of Education members, Kim and Justin and Becky and Arlen are here with me tonight. Let's give those folks a round of applause, please. Yeah, they do a great job representing you and your school district. I think we've got John Rother, Rick Lester, Rich Bacon, I think still might be out in the parking lot tending to some cars. And we'll introduce some other folks as we go along. The main purpose of tonight's meeting is to listen to you once again, any comments that you might have about our progress so far. Also to report on what has been done to date. So we had informational meetings in October in the fall. Some of them were set in a time period where farmers were busy in the field and weren't able to come in. So we're hoping if anybody has comments that want to be heard tonight that weren't able to come to some of those meetings, we let those comments know to myself and our Board of Education as we listen here tonight. So after we gathered information in the fall, we compiled a report with the help of a research outfit out of Lincoln, and then we presented a report to the Board of Education in November. Part of that report that you see is the results of the survey that's on the front or the back, however you're looking at this thing, of this informational sheet. That survey was given to all the communities, or the members of the community that came to our information meeting. So 124 filled out surveys and left of them. And then we did the similar exercise with our staff. We had 83 staff that took that survey, and you see the difference in the community members, the staff input, and the combined results. And you have numbers there that give us some information about how folks are feeling about what we should do regarding the future of our school. As a result of the meetings, in some regards, there wasn't a very clear consensus. We asked several questions for, number one, what do you think about the maintenance of the current buildings that we have at Johnson County Central? Of course, we have sites in Cook right here and at Tecumseh. In the Cook site, the original building is a 1959 building. There have been additions onto that over the years. The facility we're in right now is probably the nicest of our buildings in Johnson County Central facilities. This gymnasium is 20 years old. There's classrooms, 5 classrooms on the edge of the building over here, just to the south of us. And then at the south end of the building, there are more classrooms where we have a preschool. So all in all, at the Cook facility, we've got kind of a mixture. In the Tecumseh facility, we've got a 1931 elementary building. We've got a 1965 high school building. And in that high school building, there's been a little bit of an addition when they did some things with the industrial arts and welding labs that they put on at one time or another. But not much has been done at the Tecumseh site since 1965 for the most part. So another one of the questions was, there's no bonded indebtedness. That is, this facility was paid off a year ago. So there's no tax being levied for paying off a bond. And that's the first time this has happened since the district merged in 2007. So because of that, the question was, is now the time to consider doing some type of bond initiative? Well, if there was any kind of a consensus that came back from the questions, it was the opinion that, yes, something needs to be done. What should be done? We're still trying to gather information that will tell us that. Because we're feeling like something needs to be done, we felt like we needed to do it in a smart way. So, facilities is an issue. That might be the issue that's in front of everybody that we're most concerned about, because that's the dollars and cents one for the most part. I think, though, another issue that we need to be concerned about is the programming issue. If you look on question number come on, Galen, it should be no. Oh, question number 6. Question number 6. I would support support school programs for our children and grandchildren that looks to create an innovative school of the future. 87% of the community members there agreed with that. 93% of our staff did, meaning 90% of our staff and school community say, yeah, an innovative school of the future. Well, folks, that's programming. What kind of innovative programs should this school district be thinking of for the future? So in addition to facilities, the programs, something very important that we need to be thinking about. So to do things a little more accurately, rather than just looking at something and saying, well, that's no good, we mean to do, or that's good, we need to keep, we decided to do a couple things. We hired a consultant, Russ Coe, this is Russ, and I'll let him talk in a little bit, to give us some feedback from an expertise of being involved in the facilities for many years. Russ is a 34-year educator at Fremont Public Schools. 20 of those years, he was the director of operations. So Russ has been involved from the Fremont standpoint of their growth, when they look at their facilities, any aging facilities, any things that they might be doing program-wise that makes sense. He's the guy that ran that and gave information back to the superintendent and their Board of Education. Russ retired a year ago, which made him available to the rest of us. And I can tell you that there are other consultants that are out there. One I think of specifically that's done it for 40 years and is at the end of a career, and who has now started to involve Russ in taking over a lot of those consultations. So we asked Russ, we entered into a contract with Russ, and he's been working diligently with us to get some expertise about what our facilities really are like from the standpoint of electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, air quality, just a lot of different things, and I'll let him talk about that. We've charged Russ with preparing a facilities report, and we want that report given to our Board of Education in March. And at the March board meeting, I'm going to be asking our Board of Education to make a decision that will really either say, you know what, we probably just better hang on here, or yes, it's time to get things rolling. So at the January board meeting, we had 2 committees, a facility advisory committee and a programming advisory committee. I know we've got some of our facilities programming committee folks here. I just want you to stand up. You don't need to say anything right now if you don't want to, but if you'll stand up. Facilities Advisory Committee, we got Keith Wellensack, we've got Dan Jones and Gary Anderson, and Justin Beathy, who's also on the Board of Education. So thank you to you folks for helping us kind of take a look at our facilities. We've got members, I think, of our programming committee here also. If you're on the programming committee, would you please also stand? I know we've got some administrators here, maybe a teacher or two. So John and Rich, and John actually is running that programming committee. We've met a couple times, haven't done as much as our facilities committee has. So thanks to everybody that's getting involved. And again, at this point, please understand, we are collecting information. That is, we are determining what our needs are. And the March board meeting could prove then how to move forward with after we say, well, here's what we need. So with that, I'm going to let Russ kind of take over and just talk a little bit about what they've found so far with the facilities committee. So Russ.
Thank you. As Dr. Bolt said, I've been in the trenches for 20 years at Fremont. I've also looked at other schools in Kansas and over in Iowa and in Nebraska. I helped the North Bend with their bond issue and then have been serving as their facilities consultant for the last 7 years, making sure that their dollars are spent wisely. So, and as I went through my graduate program, facilities has always been my expertise, and I'm an old shop teacher with all my fingers, and I started my life as a contractor, so facilities is in my blood. I do this on an unbiased research base so that when I come in, I'm not looking to cut down the old administration, old school board. I came in asking and looking at your buildings, and that's why we had a facilities group help me do that. And when you do that, you've got to look at certain things. We kept the same thing in mind. And when we did that, we wanted to look at all of the facilities, so we did a tour. And I just reminded the group, this is what we really look at. This is what any consultant would look at. They look at the safety and security, if there's any improvements needed. That's big, and that's not anything that I've made up. That is something that our culture, that's what's happening, all the way around the nation just because of the shootings and so forth. Indoor air quality, that is something that has changed drastically from the old buildings to the new buildings just because of sick building syndromes and so forth. Our HVAC, that's an efficiency thing. We want to make sure that what we're doing is right, that we keep those things operational. You don't want to come into a building that's too hot, too cold. That affects how our kids learn. We look at door and windows. Those things are very important because, again, that falls back on safety, security. It also falls back on energy usage. We asked the question, do we need to remodel? Do we need to upgrade? We also looked at our equipment and furnishings. What do we need to do there? Roof replacements, and I will say that Johnson County's done a great job. I think they right now only have 1 or 2 roofs that need replaced. The rest of them are all with a 20-year warranty, and that's absolutely necessary. Technology improvement, Marcus and the crew have done a great job. We've had our electrical engineer look at that, talk to him. There's a couple things that they would recommend that we would do. Those are things that we should look at as a recommendation. But otherwise, your technology is doing great with fiber throughout and everything that's going on there. One of the things that we talked to the facilities group was, what would we need to do? Would we need to do some new additions? Would we need to do classrooms? Would we need to do a multi-purpose room? Do we need additional libraries? Do we need an auditorium? Do we need kitchens? Do we need cafeterias? Do we need gymnasiums? Do we need locker rooms? Band rooms? Would we have to demo an old building? Would we have to build a brand new building? Would we look at the efficiency of the buildings and transporting of students? What makes sense? What's the efficiency? We don't have those answers yet. So we're moving slowly, but you can't move too slow because they are what they are, and we need to now then move forward with that information. That's why we're here this evening. You also have to look at the efficiency of teacher time and administrator time, having multiple sites. So that's important. That time is money, and that's important. You got teachers traveling back and forth, administrators traveling back and forth, kids moving back and forth. You've got safety concerns there also. So here are some observations in the facilities people that walked through this. I told them good, bad, and ugly. That's just my saying. We didn't find ugly. We just found some good things, and we found some things that needed changed. And those things needed change because of updates that were required because of the safety, security, energy efficiency, and so forth. We will start with the high school. That was built in 1965. There's about 48,000 square foot on multiple levels. There are some safety concerns that when you walk in, You got to buzz yourself in. There's only one set of doors that does that. The other set off the parking lot, you can't even do that. The doors are the original 1965. They're having some issues with some access control. They can't access control that. Some interior doors, the same thing. There are some life safety codes, and I was told there hasn't been a fire marshal in your buildings for at least 14 years, and we don't want to invite them. Hopefully, is there a fire marshal in the building tonight? Raise your hand, raise your hand. Fire marshals are our friends, by the way, but when they do get into a building, they then start forcing the issue of some things, and they're things that make the buildings more safe, but do you really gain anything? Sometimes yes, but a sprinkler piping in buildings, that just costs more because you got to do a yearly, they've got to do an inspection yearly, then you get broken pipes, and there's all kinds of things that go with that. So that's just one of the life safety codes. Indoor air quality and HVAC replacement. That's something that high school definitely needs. It was designed in 1965. The air quality back then wasn't like it is today. Does it have a sick building syndrome? Absolutely not. You go into the bathrooms, do they have a smell? Yeah, the locker rooms probably too. So they do need some of that. The boilers, they definitely need some work on that. Those originally 65, it's just like an old 1965 car. The engine putting along, but cylinders and gaskets and everything are leaking, and it's time for an engine replacement. So we're looking at doing that. Next, we've got an engineer on board already that's looked at it, and he's recommending that we replace one of those to begin with. That no matter what we do, that next year that high school is going to still be there. It's going to have to still serve that, so we get rid of one. It's got a redundant system in it, and we'll take care of one, and then when the money's available, we'll take care of the second one. Talk about doors again. Exterior doors, access control is limited. Hardware is worn out. Some of the interior doors have venting in them that, again, is a life safety code issue. Creates potential safety issues also, just the way they're doing it. And again, we're close to the prison, and there's some things that safety-wise comes down the road, and we just want to make sure that the bad guys stay out of the building if they would break out. Lighting is poor in many of the areas. This is not the greatest of lighting. It could be turned around with LEDs, and we could pay those LED light project off in probably 15 months. So, and then after that, you got all that energy savings after it. That's throughout that entire high school. The lighting is still T12s. I mean, it just needs lighting. No matter what, it's going to need lighting upgrades. The building facade, it needs a facelift. General cleanliness, it needs a deep cleaning. And I know they've hired a new company. They are doing so much better. It still needs some major cleaning just to bring that thing up to a more normal standard. The band room is in the basement, and the acoustics definitely need improvement. The electrical system, it needs updated. It's been hodgepodge. There's one system, and nothing that's going to create any huge issues, but it's not up to today's standards. The fire alarm system should be updated. The intercom system is dated, and it should be updated also. The stair types, it's got an ADA lift, but the elevator is non-functional, and it's because of the ADA laws that have changed. So they do have an ADA. It does meet ADA standards, but that stair lift isn't as quite as nice as if it had an elevator, but we're still under the ADA compliance. Exterior lighting is very poor. Again, that's using up a lot of energy. And then parking. Parking is limited. And there's a whole bunch of things. I'm not going to get into the weeds on all these little things. That's what we'll end up doing with the board. We'll get into the weeds. But that's just an overall of what we discussed on the high school. And the facilities group, is there anything that I missed that, major? I don't think so, but if I did, I've asked these guys to keep me honest. So if not, please say something. So the roof is good. It's under warranty. The football field and the track, that's in great condition. They have upgraded the main set of restrooms. Those are looking really, really nice. Technology's up to date. And I'll tell you, as I walk through the building, the teachers, staff, and students, what nice people. So you've got something going really good there. Now we just need to take care of the building. The elementary building over in Tecumseh. It was built in 1931. The square footage is about 2,500 square foot on 3 different levels. They have people down in that basement. And it has served its purpose. Safety, security, the same thing as the high school. Access controls at 1 set of doors. They're having issues with those, I think, a little bit. Our main front door has some nice looking old ADA openers that don't work. The interior doors need new hardware so they can lock from the inside. There's a lot of glass. Again, if they would be an intruder, there wouldn't be much to keep those intruders from breaking into a classroom. John, you can help me on some of this too, if you keep me honest. Indoor air quality and HVAC, that needs improvement throughout. Again, 1931, I think the standard on that was open the window, let the fresh air in. They didn't care about how much heat they used at that point in time, because back in the 30s, you know, you just fired it up and let the heat run. They do have heat pumps and fin tubed steam radiators throughout. They've covered some of those up. Some of the old steam radiators don't work, which I'm actually happy of, so kids don't burn themselves with it. That's a safety issue. Some they put a wood grate around them so they don't touch that. And those actually just heat, I believe, just the halls and corridors. And inside the classrooms, they have a heat pump that's fed on their own. I mentioned the doors, those need replaced, and the outside windows are inefficient, and they do lose energy, a lot of energy during the winter. Their HVAC heating system, again, that old radiators, and those are inefficient and safety issues. Overall lack of storage space for student storage. There's old lockers out on the first floor that are kind of cumbersome for elementary age students. The classrooms are small and packed. In today's world, kids need more room, more elbow room. That's just a programming thing that you'll hear. So they were built in 1931 when you had rows, and we sat in the rows. I was one of those back, I wasn't 31, but I sat in buildings that were built back in the day, and you just had the single rows. Stay in your desk, do your thing. They don't do that anymore. They have kids up and around, and they're doing all kind of neat things. You need more space in today's world to teach, and that's just a fact. There's a lack of a multi-purpose area. The gym is elevated, which could create a safety concern. Again, the fire alarm system is very dated, and it only uses a heat detection. There is no smoke detection in there. The intercom is also dated and could need replaced. Interior walls have had damage with various type of repairs, just some Band-Aids, they never replastered well. They just kind of used some plastic sheathing over the top of it. Exterior walls need some tuck pointing in many areas. Some of the rooftop HVAC units are damaged. In fact, the coils have been smashed in, looks like by hail damage, and that's creating very inefficient heat transfer, increasing energy cost. The overall HVAC, again, those units that are in there, I believe, were put in 1999 from our records that we're looking at. They're getting to the end of their life cycle, so those would need to be updated here in the next 5 to 10 years. Limited green space for kids, and that's important that you have green space for elementary kids. The plumbing pipes are 1931, and it's kind of like an artery of your heart. If you're 1931, those could be with a bunch of cholesterol. These are with a bunch of lime and magnesium and rust and everything else in them. Corrosion is a concern. And then teacher parking again is limited, and visitor parking is also limited. Of course, the roof is good, it doesn't leak. The restrooms have been upgraded, the technology is good, and again, great teachers, very friendly, administration and staff extremely friendly, so we've got some really good things going there. John, what'd I miss? All right, thanks. Again, just come up and slug me if I've done something wrong. All right, the cook facilities. Again, as Dr. Bolt said, 1959 with latest additions, 2000, 1999, somewhere in that area. Safety, security, this building has 27 exterior doors. That's a lot of doors to make sure they're locked. The main entrance is controlled by electronic access control system. It would benefit if the visitors, if they could enter, there'd be some type of person there instead of just entering by ringing the doorbell there and having the camera. There's all kind of safety things that you can do differently. Again, it's adequate, but could be better. Indoor air quality, the older part, not good. This newer part, better, but there are some issues with some of the units. They've been having some issues. The new operation of maintenance, he's had some problems. Some of the rooftop in the old gym, there's 2 of them, one doesn't work. Even some of the newer units in 1999, those are corroded, having some issues with some of those. So they've had some maintenance people from Omaha come in and trying to fix some of that stuff. They do have some electric fin tubes going around the outer edge, and of course it is all, the heat that is gas is propane. Interior doors, they're various types. The older parts aren't rated. As you walk into the newer part, then it meets all the regulations. The flooring issues, you can see out here, they mentioned the vinyl flooring, all the little bumps underneath there, but that's just an appearance thing. But there's flooring throughout here that could need replaced, some of it's asbestos and so forth. Roofing, there is some leaking in this building, but it's where the buildings, there's so many connection points. It's actually not the roofs themselves that are leaking, but it's the flashings and some other things, but I know that they're working on that. The good, this building is all on one level. That's a great thing. That's absolutely awesome. You guys have a nice newer gym, a nice newer art room, new band room, science, preschool, and of course those elementary classrooms that we talked about. And again, as I walk through the building, the teachers are really, really nice, accommodating. Administration was really, really good to talk to. So there are issues throughout, but nothing that just says, yep, you know, ugly. There just was no ugly. So with that, that pretty much concludes just the facilities part. Dr. Bolt?
We'll give you a chance to ask Russ a few questions here in a little bit. I want to keep talking here a little bit. Russ Waring, I forgot to mention he was here. Russ has been on the job for about 2 months now, and he's spent 2 months of time down in the boiler room. That's about all Russ has gotten done several of the weeks. If you can't get some heat into the teachers and the kids, it makes it pretty tough, and it's been a little bit of a struggle. So that has been a major emphasis of what we've thought about doing in terms of some summer projects. So I kind of want to keep that in mind. If you look on the sheet, this summary sheet of information from the surveys, the notion, number 7, I understand the concept of a career academy, and number 8, I would support school programs that include career academies as a foundational part of JCC program. In addition to that, question number 3 becomes something important for our board to decide, to think about. I would support a move to put all pre-K-12 education in the district on one site. Now you'll notice there 90% of our staff agreed, 72% of our community said that also. If you're a teacher, that's one thing that really comes into play with some efficiencies. We've got teachers that drive back and forth between the sites. They lose 1 teaching period because they do it. We have shuttles that move back and forth between our 2 sites, Tecumseh and Cook. And while we'll never get rid of transportation in this district, the shuttling of kids pre-K-12 is something that creates some issues. The notion of if John, who has elementary students in Tecumseh and also in Cook, if he wants to do some staff development things with his staff, can't do it. Got teachers in different sites. At least we can't do it in a way that we feel would be very effective. So the notion that a move to one site, that is something that seems to show an indication that maybe it is time to do that. So that's another piece of the equation that when we get to our March board meeting, we'll be asking our Board of Education what makes sense for right now. Back to the Career Academy concept, if you move to one site, well, that means what do you do with the other site? Well, you saw on the map when you came in, our sociology class put a map together that had a pin for every household that had a school kid going to Johnson County Central. And a lot of that's kind of conglomerated around Tecumseh. 73% of the pins there are in what we would call an urban area, and then the other 27% is in a rural area. So the notion of what does that tell us? Well, if you're going to go to one site, you're going to go building out in the country somewhere, you're going to build in Cook, you're going to build in Tecumseh. I don't think there's any notion at all that we can go out in the country and build somewhere. Those days are gone. Oh, and something else that we talked about from the fall. Information that came from those meetings said, what are our neighbors thinking? Those schools that are around us, what are they thinking about their future? So I sent letters out to 8 of the schools that butt up against us. I got invited to go to a Board of Education meeting in Sterling and also in Pawnee City. The Pawnee City Board met with a committee of our Johnson County Central Board to think about ways that we might be able to collaborate in some fashion. And I talked with the superintendents of each of the other schools, and at this time, that's not something that those schools would be interested in furthering. Outside of things like cooperatives. So at Pawnee City, they're struggling with finances. It makes sense for them to do something to collaborate with someone. Humboldt, Table Rock, HTRS is the closest school to them, and it might make the most sense for them to do that. At this time, they're still winging it kind of on their own. But if we were to come to a point where we would want to do something in an activity in which we had a cooperative going, yeah. And as we left that meeting, we had an understanding that if there's something we can do that could benefit both schools, then we need to think about doing that. We had a cooperative with Sterling a year ago with middle school football. And we've met again, and it looks like maybe in another year that might be something that could help also. At Sterling, they were not interested in really making a commitment to go beyond that, but we made it clear that we felt in Johnson County Central there was a sense that we need to do something. So waiting around for one of our neighbors to say, hey, you know what, we want on that bandwagon also in some way, we just didn't feel like that was something that the communication was telling us. So we feel like we've done a good job of finding out if there's interest in some of our neighbors. We feel good that we have a facilities committee that's been meeting and working to try to give our Board of Education an informed report. And you know, the concept of, with most of those pinheads on that map out there being around that Tecumseh site, might make sense to build at that site. Well, what does that mean in terms of this site? So you have your best gymnasium and classrooms sitting right here. Well, one of the things that we've talked a little bit about is career academies and the notion of what that means for the future. We currently, in programming, have several career academies right now that our kids are engaged in with Southeast Community College. That concept is called SENCAP, Southeast Nebraska Career Academy Partnership. The partnership is with Southeast Community College. Our kids get college credit by being involved in that program. Rick, you got a rough idea, how many kids we got in SENCAP? We've got over 40 students right now, juniors and seniors. Southeast Community College gives them half-price tuition while they're in this program. Now, for one of those classes, we pay for the other half of the tuition. Now, we've got several kids that take more than one class. They get one class, though, paid for. So we're seeing already the value of getting kids involved in programs that make a connection to what they learn and what they that will mean for the world of work. We think that's a very powerful concept. We're finding that that's what many schools of the future, are thinking about. And I will tell you that I've been in contact with Southeast Community College about what we might do for an academy at this Cook site. So back behind the old gym, you've got two steel buildings back there. One of them used to be a welding shop and the other one used to be a construction shop. Those buildings are still in great shape. There's no reason they couldn't be used. In my mind, I am seeing some value in even that old gymnasium as part of the academy. So as we think about, we get a little closer to March, how we might be able to still utilize a site in Cook. Yeah, I think there's some opportunities there. The details of it, we're a long ways from sorting out the details. But I did meet with Randy Nelson. Randy's the director of CENCAP. I met with him, and Randy's setting a meeting up between he and I and the heads of the Department of Welding, Construction, and Agriculture to see what kind of programming we could make right here in this facility. I'm talking about next door, not in the new good gym here. How that could be utilized so we could bring welding, construction, agriculture together into an academy concept where kids got credit and they got work experience. So again, that's still kind of a vision, but I see some potential there. And we will continue to try to push forward to see where that might end up before we get too far down the road here. We'll take some questions in a minute, but John, do you want to say something about programming? Just maybe talk a little bit about what we see on the horizons there, the things that we've been talking about. Again, John heads up the programming committee. I hope everybody understands what happened a year ago when Jack went to become the executive director of NERCSA. That's a professional organization of rural schools, and Jack, as executive director, left for that. That's when the Board of Education hired me to be an interim for a couple years. But they also identified John as someone that they wanted to be the next superintendent. I'm an interim superintendent. And as the next superintendent, John is going to be the guy that kind of leads the force as we move on down into a future. And it didn't take me long to understand why the Board of Education wanted John to be in that role. He's the elementary principal right now, but he's going to be an incredible superintendent. And he's heading up the programming committee, so I'd like to have you maybe just say a few things.
All right, thanks, Galen. Program committee is a little easier. It's a less contentious topic right now, to be sure. So this is just kind of thinking about what we offer right now, how we offer it, and what we would like to do with our offerings, given the facilities and the setup we currently have. And so a lot of that is just talking about, you know, it'd been about 13 years ago, a lot of people cut out a lot of their home ec type classes, some shop classes and things like that, trying to bring some of those opportunities back and thinking about, do some of these things need to be taught within a full school year? Can some of these things be taught in half a school year or a quarter of a school year? You know, what should the school day look like? Do we need 8 periods? Does everything need a full 50-minute period every day? And maybe looking at different ways to offer those things, stretch what we do have, stretch the staff that we do have into different roles maybe, or some different offerings. So looking at the school week, the school day, how many hours are in the day, how that can be broke up to offer more things for our students to give them more opportunities. Because I think there's a lot out there we could offer our students, but a lot of times we just get stuck into that 8-hour day, 8 periods within the day, 5 days a week, do a quarter, do 2 quarters, that makes a semester, and then a full year. Just trying to break that up a little bit. And so what we have broken it down to are things that can be done within the next school year, you know, things that we could change, and that's a little bit of thinking outside the box, things that maybe are a little bit further out or that we don't have the means to do currently, at least how we're thinking about them right now. So a lot of this is just sitting at the table, kind of a think tank, just trying to think about different ways to do things, different ways to offer. And of course, career academies come into that. That's something that's already going on. You know, distance learning, we all know about that, learning from somebody from a ways off. And that stretches all the way down to elementary too. You know, what we offer our elementary students and what we could offer. So if nobody has questions about programming, I'm going to move away from the mic. All right, you had your chance.
Okay, so let's get into some comments or questions. Tom.
What the enrollment will be 10 years from now, and you said no, you hadn't. Have you done any enrollment?
Well, the question is, have we done any work to see what the enrollment would be 10 years down the road? And that is not a recommendation that I've made to the Board of Education to spend the money to bring a consultant in that does those kinds of things. There are folks that do those kinds of things. My own opinion on that is that those conjectures about what enrollment is going to be 10 years from now are so dependent on so many things you have zero control on that I think it's more prudent to talk about what have the enrollments done the last 10 years, the last 20 years. And if we talk about that, we will find that the enrollment for this school district has remained almost completely constant. There's been an up year and a down year. But in terms of where we are now compared to where we were 10 years ago, not much change. So if we want to talk about this, go ahead, Tom, follow up. Did you have another question follow up on?
Tried to keep the school. They joined with Cook, and it wasn't big enough. Now they joined with you. So you're going to tell me 20 years from now before we get it paid for it? It takes a 20-year bond issue. We just got through paying for this one, and now it ain't big enough. I think the walls are going to fall down compared to the last meeting. You want me to read off some of the things you had to be repaired?
Well, again, the facts that were found out.
Have you floating a 4 mil bond issue, not a 4 mil levy for maintenance? I understand we've got 94 mills, and 4 mills of it is for maintenance.
6 mills. 6 mills goes to bond fund, or to building fund. 88 cents to general fund and 6 cents then on to the building fund.
4 mills brings in $444,000.
That's exactly right.
So 6 mills would bring in $667 million or $1,000. You ain't spent in the last 5 years. The most you spent, one was $340,000. Are you just purposely letting them go downhill instead of spending the mill levy?
Well, Tom, I would say that no one is purposely letting anything go downhill. But as you look at the needs and you try to decide what it is that we should keep spending money on. Okay, so one of the projects that we have got a recommendation from on the guy that's been doing our roofs, has been doing a good job. We're going to spend $238 million this next year to repair the roof that goes around the outside of this gym. $238 million. $238,000, sorry, not quite that bad. He also has a proposal to the 1959 building that's out here. That would be the next phase if we want to repair that roof, $550,000. So the question that our Board of Education has to answer, do we keep doing those projects? At our last board meeting, we decided we're going to get bids to replace a boiler. Around $100,000 is what that's going to cost. That's not because people haven't been taking care of things. That is because those are the items that are out there that we need to draw attention to. And you know, how we do that, to tell you the truth, the high school the bottom floor of the high school restrooms. That needs to be done, and the board had identified that as a project. But quite frankly, that's going to go on hold because of prioritizing some of our other needs that we have to keep our buildings going. No, we had 2 restrooms left to do at the high school. Those are the ones in the bottom floor. Now we decided not to do those because we got a boiler we have to take care of. Well, if there were 3 restrooms, I don't remember what 3 there were there. We knew we had 2 that we had planned on doing. We did the 2 that are right outside that gymnasium. Those turned out great. So we had 2 more at the bottom that we wanted to do. And by the way, in that high school building, there are no restrooms in the top floor. So, I mean, that's just kind of the design of that building. Other questions? Yes?
You touched on the ADA compliance. Right now we have a special ed classroom that is in the basement of the high school building. It is very difficult to use a lift and slow. My daughter's disabled. She has to walk through the elementary building, upstairs, downstairs. Is there any way we can get an elevator or something more efficient in the meantime? I mean, because you got them stuck down the bottom, and these are the kids that need the single floor, the not having to climb the stairs, not. I mean,
it meets today's compliance, and that's why they've asked me what should we do different, and there is no simple answer at this point. That's why we're getting more additional information, and we will come up with a recommendation. But I feel for you, because I know we had that in Fremont too, and we ended up shutting down that same type of building, and it was gone because of this type of issue. So yeah, at this point, can you put an elevator on? The answer would be absolutely. You know what the answer is on that though? How much money do we want to spend on a 1931 building? And can they change, can they move the kids up to the main floor? The answer is yes, but then you're shuffling people all the way around. So programming comes back into issue. Where do you move your special ed room to? So everything ties together, and that's exactly what we're looking at as a committee, is we've got to find out what programming, what needs, and then put together a plan. And that's what they've been talking to me about, because I've seen it in multiple buildings, and it's not the best answer. It complies, but is it best? And we're here for kids. That's really what we're here for, is kids. Every single kid, we want to make it the best what we can. So we're with you.
Other questions? Yes? Say that again.
Who would own the building in a SEPCAP partnership at the Kim site if you decided to do everything at the Kim site?
The question is, who would own the buildings? And no matter what, Johnson County Central Public Schools would own the buildings. Now, Southeast Community College has expanded their campuses, and that's something that their new leadership did 2 or 3 years ago. They identified learning centers, one in Plattsmouth, Nebraska City, Falls City, in, I think, Hebron, I believe over by York, and in Wahoo. So they have 6 campuses that they had identified from their reaching out, I'm going to say probably 3 years, maybe 4 years ago now. And so they've kind of decided on that. So the notion that they would also then take on owning a building and making programs available here, no. I've already asked that question. Now, having said that, I think if, again, we think about programming of the future, I think if we identify how we can make that a program that kids who leave Johnson County Central have some type of certification in areas that have to do with HVAC, construction, welding, agriculture, that could be attractive to some other schools in the area. because once you, I mean, this would be an investment for our community. I mean, you got a couple buildings back here that'll work fine, but that means you have to have equipment that also meets SCC standards. Now, once again, when you think of the needs of our kids, at one time we were just preparing kids to do good on the ACT so they could go to the University of Nebraska. And quite frankly, half of them never made it. At least half. That's the statistics on kids going back to the university. And where do we need to really invest in the future of our kids? It's in areas like this. It's in areas in which they have skills. Southeast Community College, getting an associate degree through a place like Southeast Community College. That makes all the sense in the world. I was 25 years a high school principal. I bet in 20 of those, my main focus was getting kids ready to go to the University of Nebraska or Wesleyan or Peru State. And I look back on that and I think to myself, man, oh man, may have missed the boat on what some of our focus should have been, what a better focus could have been for not a majority, but for a good deal of our kids. So, again, that concept, Career Academy concept, Southeast has 9 different academies. We would still offer Academy concept at the Tecumseh site. You've got a hospital over there. You've got doctor's offices. That's a health academy. We would also do an education academy, helping kids find out what it's like to get into the teaching profession, providing them with job shadowing experiences, providing them with opportunities to go out and see what that looks like. Criminal justice. We've got sheriff's office, police department. We've got the correctional facility, all right here, very close by. We have the opportunity in an academy concept to see how that works while kids are in high school. And to tell you the truth, if you want to be a lawyer, no better way than to get a good work experience by finding out what it's like to be a part of criminal justice. If you want to be a doctor, no better way to do it than get involved in the hands-on of taking a CNA class, getting involved with the hospital, getting involved with some of those programs, because they all have a connection to something in which you have a skill and then can turn that, if you want, into a career. We still want our kids that are thinking about some kind of a professional career. We want them included in this kind of a concept also. But we do not want to leave behind any of our students that have those kinds of things that we're using their hands. They're figuring out things. We've heard time and again, my gosh, we don't have anybody around that does HVAC stuff, electrical work anymore, plumbing. All of those things are training areas that we believe a focus on the Career Academy concept during their junior and senior year. You know, we still want to do exploratory things in the middle school or that freshman, sophomore year, but then by the time they get to that junior and senior year, let's give them something that's really, they can leave this school with something in their hand. So that's the concept. Good question, though. Other questions?
How many kids opting out of this district? And how many are there?
We lose a total of 99. That's a question I can't answer. I mean, there's several logical reasons. If you live on the peripheral edges and you're closer to another school, maybe it makes sense. We got some folks that drive to Lincoln to work, and their kids, you know, maybe they drive and drop them off at Syracuse. We'll lose 39 to Syracuse and 39 to Johnson Brock, and a variety of different ones.
So if you build a new school, how do you know there's not going to be more kids opting out before you build a new school? And then another thing I tell you, you schools are the most guinea fish there is on buses, because you go at 3 o'clock west of Cook a mile, and Riverview supposed to be going, and 20 minutes later, Johnson County Central be going, and 20 minutes after that, Johnson Brock's at the east end of Cook. I think you need to redo the districts and then eliminate the opting out program.
Well, that would be a concept that's a little bit the notion of our state legislature that makes the rules. That's an issue that would have to go before them. Now, I tell you, I hope you understand that when a family options their children out of our district, we don't educate those kids. Somebody else does. But we have the value of their land in our tax base. So I think you can look at that lots of ways. I would hate to have the concept that, well, we just don't have a good enough school, and so we're going to go somewhere else. Now, I can tell you, just being here for 6 months, 7 months, this school district is a great school district. We are doing things with kids that are incredible. I told John and Rich when we were meeting this morning, we had an IEP in my office. Generally don't have those things. But that IEP lasted for an hour and 45 minutes, which means we had a team of 6 people talking about one student and what was going to be success for them for that long. And that's not been my experience in some other schools. Yeah, we all, any children that have special needs, I mean, you take that time to develop individual education plans. And there's a question on here, isn't there, about do you opt out because of the quality? Let's look at that question. That's now at the bottom of this thing. I believe that the loss of students to other districts through option enrollment is a result of the perception of low quality education. Well, 40%. Now remember, the key word to me in that one is the perception of low quality. I have found that to be exactly the opposite. There's another question in here. Look at question number 10. This one's a little concerning to me, quite frankly. Question number 10. I believe that the racial, ethnic diversity of Johnson County Central is a strength for our school district. Overall, between community and faculty, 66% agree that it's a strength. That means we got 34% that don't see it as a strength. Now, I've got more of a question about why on this one more than I do the option enrollment one. So the fact is, there are some things that we need to think about. There's no doubt about it. I believe that if you create that school of the future that's innovative, I think you might have some of those 99 that are optioning out that might all of a sudden say, man, maybe should we be going to JCC as opposed to somewhere else? So the question is, it's a speculative question, isn't it? Why are so many people optioning out? And quite frankly, you'd have to talk to people, I guess, that are doing it, and then I'm not sure you'd get the answer that maybe is the true answer. I'm just being honest here. Tom?
Principal was at the meeting in Tecumseh.
Yes?
And I said, I'm 25 miles. He said, I'm 10 miles. If I had to take my kids further than 10, I'd opt out of the district. The district goes 4 miles north of me yet, and I'm 25 miles from Tecumseh. So you don't need to wonder why people opt out. I mean, well, they're closer to Nebraska City than they are to Cook.
Yeah, our district covers a long span, there's no doubt about it.
Operating on 66 mills, and you're operating on 88 if you take 6 out for upkeep. You're actually at 94. They're at 66 with a 5 mil bond issue, which goes 3 of it goes off this year. So they got you beat 6 million.
Here's the deal on that.
All the problems you got in this school.
Well, I'm not going to speak for Johnson Brock. I can speak for Johnson County Central. There have been, the merger between Talmadge and Cook happened in 65, 67, somewhere in that neck of the woods. And then, of course, the merger between Tecumseh and Nemaha Valley happened in 2007. So there's a Board of Education that's elected, and their role is to take care of the children's educational needs. That's their focus. They need to focus on that. They need to focus on that. And they need to do it in a fiscally responsible way. That is for sure. Well, yes, I do. Yes, I do. But I also look at what we have with our facilities, and I compare that to some schools that are around the neck of the woods. I look at what's happening in Freeman. I look at what's happening in Elmwood, Murdoch. I look at what's happening in Weeping Water, in Louisville, in several schools in Johnson Brock. They just built, added on to some of their facilities. And I wonder myself, you know, is that something that we should want to have for our children here?
$1.5 million, and the $3 million goes off this year, I was just told. So they only got $1.5 million left for all the work they've done on it.
I'm sure that's probably true, but quite frankly, our Board of Education can't be concerned about what anybody else. You know, we asked schools that are close to us about if they wanted to be a part of what we do, and Pawnee City was the only one that really had something. I had a hand up way over here.
JCC considered for middle school grades today? 6, 7, and 8, 7, and 8?
Yes. Right now we are 6, 7, and 8. So at the Cook site, we have middle school, grades 6, 7, and 8. We also have grades 4 and 5. So part elementary, part middle school. We also have a preschool that is at the Cook site. And we shuttle kids back and forth before school, after school. Those preschools, that's a shuttle that happens in the middle of the day also, doesn't it? Somewhere along the line? Only at Tecumseh is the shuttle there. Yes.
If you had the luxury to build a new, say, elementary at Tecumseh, you're still going to be maintaining this facility. Could it be, I know it doesn't get away from the transportation issue, but it's a beautiful gym, should be used. Could you still just have 6, 7, and 8 if you're going to still and a career academy? Is that?
All of those things would be on the table about what our board would want to do. Sure. Yes. So if you keep 6, 7, and 8 here, then you're going to need to address all those facility issues that Russ was talking about regarding HVAC, one thing or another, that $550,000 roof that we would want to do.
Regardless, you're going to have a career academy here.
Oh no, not that part. Not that part. The Career Academy would only be over here. We have the brand new classrooms. Those could get used for some distance learning probably for our Career Academy kids. And then the steel buildings back behind the old gym. No, I would not envision any of the 1959 original building as being a part of the Career Academy. Yeah, very possibly. Very possibly. Very much like the elementary building in Tecumseh. I mean, that's got to be a consideration.
Back here, and then they use the steel building for the factory industrial.
That's a potential.
The city bought a grocery store.
Absolutely.
Teach welding and how to make
Computers. Welding and computers at that grocery store.
all industrial.
I'm sorry, Tom.
We don't have welding and that stuff in school anymore like we used to.
Well, again, that's part of what I think our programming committee has to inform our Board of Education about, and then our board's got to make a decision, is this something that makes sense? Maybe we shouldn't be teaching welding and construction and alternative energy, and we shouldn't be making a big push for that. I happen to think that that is the direction of the school of the future. I'm not on the board and I'm not voting on the board. And the Board of Education is elected to make decisions about how to move forward. Other questions? Yes?
So what are we talking cost, let's say, to maintain their buildings we have now for the next 20 years versus a one campus schoolroom from scratch?
Are you talking about the maintenance part of that?
What we have now versus what would it cost to start all over from scratch?
I'd love to give you an answer. We haven't gone that far, but that's a great question. That's something I need to investigate. We did have a mechanical engineer and electrical engineer go over and look at the Tecumseh sites, and they've given us a short report. They haven't been here yet to look at this. We want to dig that information up and try to find that information out. So that's something that we're looking at. We want to know what the efficiencies are. So great question, and we will have an answer on that one. I don't have it yet, though, for you.
Just so Gary. Sorry. This question was, can you give us a cost about maintenance over the 20 years on what we have right now, as opposed to starting from scratch and doing building or a new building or renovation? And Russ's response, we're not at that point where we have that kind of information available.
What's the new school going to cost us?
That's what it comes down to, doesn't it? I mean, in many ways it does. And I will tell you that we really had good discussion at our last board meeting about this, and that is an issue that has to be taken into consideration. I want to ask a question of the people in this room right now. How many people think that we should improve the fine arts facilities for the children at Johnson County Central? Raise your hand. Well, the question at this point doesn't have an answer, because you have to say which things are we going to, what are we going to do? Are we going to keep the elementary building? Well, if we keep the elementary building, that'll cut our costs down quite a bit, won't it? Well, be careful when you say demolish all the other stuff, because that's the notion of thinking about what could we maybe demolish and then build new, what might we be able to renovate. And at some point, I think the board has got to have a number, come up with a number, and be able to say then, you know what, this number I think is gets most of our needs. No, no. Well, if you want to go out into the country and build a new school, you're probably close to that, maybe 40 million, something like that. Yeah. I don't think that this Board of Education is considering anything like that.
Well, when I was here being a farmer, we're used to high expense, so I don't think some of this is all that bad on here, because you got a new roof, you got that taken care of for several years, and number two, eliminate your flat roof and put a peak on it, you won't have all that problems with your roofs. I don't care what kind of building you got, whether it's your house or your church, you're always going to have a lot of maintenance on it. That's going to come every year.
There will be maintenance no matter what happens, that's correct.
Maintenance on the right way. Something's going to blow off.
Other comments?
Anything you can do without getting a bond? You're talking about maybe wanting a bond. State legislature is trying to figure out how to protect, how to lower personal or property tax. They're working real hard at that. It don't sound like this is anything that's going to help property tax.
The question is, would we be thinking of a bond? And the answer to that is yes. Well, the notion of what our legislature decides to do with funding of schools, that's been an issue, hasn't it? How do we fund our schools? So I guess the things that, as a community, we have to think about. So since the legislature, we believe, is getting it wrong in how we fund our schools, should our kids suffer for that? Now, I use the word suffer. Maybe that's too strong, because we can keep going as long as we want for as long as we want. I mean, we can. So the concept, and this came out of that Tecumseh meeting that we had, not this recent one, but one in the fall. We had one of our first informational meetings was at the Tecumseh site, and there was a student that was in the audience, and this student wanted to talk. And so she got up and she says, well, I'll tell you one thing, sometimes we feel like we are not respected by other schools. Because when they come here, they look at our school and they kind of laugh. Now, this is from a student that said she didn't feel they were respected. Now, is this just one of our kids? I don't know. Might be. I happen to think that's probably more folks thinking about that. I know I talked to one patron that said he had his house sold 3 times until the folks that were going to buy his house drove by the school. So there's some notion of what does a school mean to a community. Now, we need to be very proud of the school that we have and the education that our kids are getting. Now, I mean that. And I think that you are proud of that. So the question is, being proud of our facilities, does that enter into it also? And there's a balancing act there also. A $40 million school ain't going to work. It's just not going to fly here. Can I ask my question now? How many people in the room here think that we need a fine arts facility that better supports our students? Raise your hand. This is only about 25%, I would say, that raised their hands. Now, again, I'm an outsider. I'm only here for a couple years. And I was spoiled. There's no doubt about it. I worked at the Norris Public Schools and I worked at Wahoo, who had a fine arts facility, and I saw what happened to those programs. And I see how we support athletics at JCC with our facilities. And I see what we're asking our band and chorus folks to do to build programs with our facilities. And it's 2 different things. If you're going to have a program in a gymnasium, and while that Tecumseh site has an auditorium, it's not one where I would consider that an experience for our kids that gives them the concept about what it's like to be supported in their productions. So, if we think that's a need, that's one more thing to fund, isn't it? So that drives up the cost of what we would want to do. Yes?
I would disagree. I think Tom Doran and the other people that have taught drama at Johnson County Central have done an exceptional job.
They have.
I've watched a lot of musicals. My son has just participated in the Lincoln Community Playhouse production. And some of the people have, from those music experiences, have gone on to do well in those things. So I wouldn't diminish too much what our staff has done already. They've done a good job.
Oh, I apologize greatly. If that comment came across about our staff not doing a good job.
But the facility did a good job as well. They've produced some, I've watched some good productions. And one that just stood out in my mind is when Grant Campbell did, and he's not my son or anything, but he did Beauty School Dropout. they've done some very good things on that stage and done a good job.
Thank you for that comment. Yes.
I agree. I mean, they've done a lot of good things, and the staff has done well with what they have. But I've also helped our students when they go to other competitions, and they just don't have the things here at our facilities. They go to other facilities, and being able to run soundboards and light boards that they do not have access to at our facilities, because they have a light on and a light off here, as opposed to a lighting board that they can control a lot of things. You know, I mean, it just, and being able to have mics that you can hear the students without them having to project extremely loud. I mean, our students do an amazing job, but I would love for them to be able to be heard and to be appreciated for what they do when they're on that stage. Because sometimes I think they kind of get sold short with everything else that gets focused on at our school, and they deserve their moment to shine.
Yes.
I just want to go back to a comment that you made a couple minutes ago about a person having sold their house 3 times and then they drove by the school. A lot of you know me, I graduated from Beaver Valley in 2001, went to the university, been a lawyer in Lincoln since that time. Lived away from the community since that time, but obviously stayed involved. My husband is from Albion. I'm trying to convince him that, hey, we need to come back home. And part of the explanation and the conversation we're having is, okay, what does that mean? Does it mean JCC, my home school, even though I graduated from Beaver Valley? Everybody vote yes. Or does it mean Syracuse? Or does it mean Johnson Rock? And, you know, you look at everything when you aren't necessarily tied to a place emotionally. You look at test scores, you look at facilities. And I'm about as strong of an advocate for this school as anybody will find, and I'm still having to work on him some. So all the rest of you can work on him too. But I'm just saying that those are the types of considerations that if you want to bring the kids home, this conversation matters. And I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, you have to take into consideration the cost and egg prices and the crop prices and everything else, and for that matter, all the problems with the school funding mechanism at the state legislature. But we can't control that. We can control what we can control, and I just say thank you for having the conversation, and I hope folks at least consider the fact that while yes, it's a building, and yeah, there's maybe needs versus wants, those types of considerations, I think, do impact where people decide to come home to. Does it mean Cook or Tecumseh, or does it mean Johnson or Syracuse? I think it makes a difference.
Thank you. Yes.
You, in the one comment when you were talking about a $40 million school out in the country that isn't, you know, that's nothing being considered. So are we to the point where we're pretty sure if something new were built, it would be in Tecumseh at the current, in Tecumseh? Is that what we're
If
saying?
we were to go to one site, I think there's energy right now that it would be pre-K-12 education at the Tecumseh site. That could be a combination of a new elementary school, renovating the high school, you know, and I'm speaking here and I haven't even talked to the Board of Education or Russ about this, but the fact of, does the high school become the elementary? And do we build a new high school? I mean, we do own ground across the football field to the east side of that football field, so we've got some other ground there that's available to us. And then, of course, maintaining a career academy concept at Cook, that's additional expense. That is exactly right. That's still additional expense. It's additional maintenance expense. But again, completed with maybe some type of renovation about what that might mean with maybe we don't have this 1959 portion of the building anymore. So yeah, that's a combination of things. And to tell you the truth, where this leads, and again, I go back to that question, was it number, oh no, this was a summary of the comments. that we don't know what the right thing to do is, but we believe it's time to do something. So our board will be charged with an immense task of figuring out what's that right something to do. And then it gets in front of you as voters, and then you go to the ballot box and you close that window and you make your mark. That's a simple process. I mean, that's just the way it works. And however that turns out, we move on. Yes?
Nobody will disagree that we got to have something done. But I have yet to hear anybody really ask the question, can the economy in Johnson County Central afford to do it right now? We just came out of 8 years of poor economy. Now we're in an economy of pure crap for the farmers. Well, who bears the tax burden on all of this? All the property tax comes off the farm ground. Can they bear it? Because I know a lot of guys that are running right on the razor's edge. Is that going to break them? I don't know. But has anybody asked that question? Can the economy of Johnson County Central bear that extra tax burden right now?
So I don't know, for me, and I mean, the point that you're bringing is absolutely going to be on the forefront of everybody's mind.
Has the school board asked that question?
Well,
I honestly think the timing is way off.
Well, it could be. I mean, we could get to our March board meeting and say, you know what, the timing's not right. So here's what I would say about that. Timing hasn't been right when? When will the timing be right? Do we wait for the legislature to fix the property tax issue? Do we wait for commodity prices to go up? I mean, the whole notion of waiting until the time is right, that's for me a philosophical question, more than it is, because now you're really talking the guessing game. So do we wait till NIACOR comes in? I mean, that's that mining company that's going to bring in another $300 million in valuation.
We keep raising taxes and pushing farmers out with declining property values. And once again, you're starting to lose more money. It's a vicious circle right now with the poor farm economy.
I tried to work them when I was over there talking to that Board of Education. They wouldn't. They just built on 7 years ago. They built a new one 7 years ago. And that's what's kind of getting in the way of. That was 20 years ago. It is a nice building. We had another hand up over here, I thought. Maybe not. Yes, Tom.
A lot of college students quit, switch what they're taking. So you can only push all this so far. You got to teach the basics in high school. You can't offer everything in every school. Yeah, if you get big enough, they offer wrestling. You don't have wrestling because you got to.
Whoa. What'd you say? We don't have wrestling? We just sent 5 kids to the state wrestling tournament. We do have a wrestling program, and I want to tell you what, we would do anything to grow that wrestling program. Now, those wrestlers, they practice over here in the old gym. They roll those mats out. I will tell you, the programs that are the most successful, they got their own wrestling room somewhere. Okay, so where does that fit in? Does that fit in something that we want to do for our kids? Support that program? Those are exactly the kind of questions, Tom, I think. I mean, they're in front of us. What's the right answer? I don't know what the right answer is, but I will tell you that when I see Elmwood Murdoch down the road, they've got 14 cents on their bond levy. That's what those folks are paying. That's a farm ground community also. Freeman down the road, they ran a bond issue.
Tax in Johnson County is going to be $100 an acre in 5 years. It's coming.
Could be.
So you're just saying it, what how high their levy is. Well, the farmers are paying $100 an acre taxes.
Well, but the levy it got increased because they decided to build. So they put a bond on. So that's that 14 cents I'm talking about. It doesn't have anything to do with property tax. It's just the decisions of those voters to decide to build. And they built a beautiful facility, a beautiful facility. Tom.
This is back to a sore subject as far as I'm concerned. When you tell me you've got 6 mills, that's over 600,000, and you pass this out in Tillman's. Only one year, 2014, you spent 341,000. In 2015, you spent 174,000. In 2016, you spent 177,000. And the next year, you spent 290,000. Where's the rest of the money? What do you do with it? I mean, why don't you fix up some of these things this gentleman just mentioned?
They're only levying enough money to pay for the projects. Well, quite frankly, no. To tell you the truth, and again, I'm an interim superintendent here, but to do all the projects, the board should be levying about 12 cents on their building fund, bringing in that much more money because all of that fund, I mean, it's not depleted. We don't spend that down to nothing. I'm not following you, Tom. I'm not following. Yeah, but I'm not following where you're questioning where the money has gone. No, I've got the same copy. I'm just not following. The money that gets levied gets put into the building fund, and that's the fund where those repairs all come out of. Maybe we can talk here afterwards to Keith. 773 million. $773 million, real close to that. That valuation remained about the same from the year before. It went up just less than 0.5%.
4 mills brings in 444, and you say you're operating on 6, so that'd be 670 million.
Every cent that we levy, I'm talking about 1 cent, on a $773 million valuation brings in $73,000. Every cent. For every cent. It's easier for me to talk in terms of cents because we have 88 cents on our general fund and we have 6 cents on our building fund. So that 773, so it brings in 77,000 every 1 cent. Did this go off? If you go back and look at our tax forms that we filed that were in the paper, we have a total levy of 93.9 cents. Total levy. That's general fund and building fund. Total levy, 93.9. 6 cents of that is the building fund. 6 cents brings in about $450,000. That's exactly right. Other questions about the future of the school? Yes?
Prepare when the higher up people tell us they don't know what's coming in the future as far as our computers and what our workforce is going to be. How do we prepare?
I think that's a real task that our programming committee has. We know that we need to take care of the basic education. We know that we need to give kids a foundation on foundational skills. So all the English and the math and science and all those things, yes. But what we are doing to give our kids a head start on pursuing their hopes and dreams. It's so diverse. I mean, there's so many things out there. Think of what we're doing at Johnson County Central with Strive. Marcus has put this Strive program together. Our kids get the opportunity to go broadcast and do things that they're broadcasting out. That's not cheap, but it is so valuable. In the programming of the future, that's a program we need to expand. We need to give more kids the opportunity in journalism experiences to do broadcasting. In theater productions, tech crew. I mean, it's not just the kids that are the actors and singers that are out there. Those kids that are behind the scenes. Those are experiences that are so valuable. All of those things take money. I mean, they just do. And how you fit those things all together, it's a real balancing act. Other questions? Great questions, great comments. Yes?
So you talk about these career academics, which I think are a good thing, but if you build a brand new school somewhere and they're still having them here, you're still transferring them and you're still fighting logistics like you have been. And also, you have these buildings and you want to turn them into, but why are we waiting then? You know, that doesn't have to have a new school to increase that. You know, they're here already. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with the format of, we've got 4 through 8 here right now, and high school is at the Tecumseh site. So that would just take some time. Why we can't do it right now, we think there's value in the fact of not transporting all of the pre-K-12 kids, but if we have specialized kids, we're talking about just those kids that would become, we're thinking that is probably an acceptable way of thinking we can still use the site. Now, the option is just close the site down entirely. That is something that could happen, that the entire Cook site is closed down so that nobody uses this gym, nobody uses those classrooms, nobody uses nothing, and we just build a new school at Tecumseh. I don't think there's any board members here that think that's the best thing to do. So it's a little give and take. I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. But right observation, one of those things out there. Okay, what else? Yes? Wow, got nailed on that one. There are 75% of the programming committee that's women. You know what we did? I sat down with our leadership, with our board, and we just came up with names of folks that we felt would be good, and I'm sure there's good. I'll take credit for the oversight. Dang right.
I agree.
Agree?
I agree.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, yeah.
Good observation.
Nope. My wife tells me that all the time.
Anything else you want to talk about? Oh, yes.
I think I am on part of the facility meeting committee, and it's very tough. We're a very huge farm community. Obviously, a lot of the tax base comes from that, and I know it's difficult. And would I like to go build a brand new school tomorrow? Absolutely, because I think it'd make Johnson County stand out. What are we doing right now that makes Johnson County stand out above Syracuse, above Johnson Brock, above Freeman over here? If you have families that move in on the outskirts or even in the community, what do they see? That's a question that we get answered all the time. So what is JCC going to do 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road to make them a leader in this? A leader in this. Oh, my phone down. You know, so it's a difficult, is it the right timing to put a bond in there? I don't know. Would have been better 8 years ago. I don't know. You know, it's a very difficult situation. Do I see value in this community, in this school right now that's sitting here in Cook? Absolutely. You know, if my son, I have a sixth grader and a second grader, right? Or third grader, she correct me. And they can come out of this school and be able to have a head start on if they want to be a welder, if they wanted to be in construction, if they wanted to be a nurse, or if they want to be in law enforcement, a head start of any other school around here, that'd be amazing. You know? Now, facilities, you look at facilities, we have outdated facilities. You know? So what are we going to do? Are we going to allow it to go to where we have to do something? Are we to that point? That's a lot of questions. It comes down to money. If we wait 10 years down the road, instead of costing us $5 million, it's going to cost us 15. That's the stuff we got to answer right now. You know, I see a huge advantage of having one site, and I'm married to a Nemaha grad, so it's you know, but I see value in this building. I wish we could hold, you know, there's all kinds of stuff you could do with this. The doors aren't closed, and that's what the facility committee, program committee is trying to figure out where JCC wants to be in 20 years. You know, you heard it from right back here. They're looking at moving in. What's going to attract them to be here? You know, so it's not an easy time. You know, so I hope we can move forward as a community and be part of JCC and move forward and make them the top in the area. Why can't we be number one? You know, this academy thing would set us apart from anybody else if we got it off track. So when is the right time? When are we going to, our facilities, are we spending our money wisely, put maintenance in all these items? Or is it time to really renovate and really look at trying to make them efficient? That boiler, I guarantee, in Tecumseh facility is outdated and is very inefficient. You got geothermal right now that has 20-year warranties on it that pay for themselves in 2 years. So what kind of stuff do we look at? That's all I got.
Thanks, Dan.
These community colleges have got to carry on teach welding and woodworking and so forth.
It's true. Yes, Arlen.
If it helps, our board is 2/3 female.
There you go. The Board of Education is 2/3 female. Yes. Thanks for bailing me on that, Arlen. It was interesting to see our mechanical engineer down in the boiler room when that boiler fired up, and you know, it kind of has one of those as it kind of stepped back a little bit. I think maybe he was worried what was going to happen with that boiler, but such is life, I guess. Well, listen, folks, this is your school. I mean, it's your school. You elect a Board of Education to make important decisions, and we've got some important decisions to make. And ultimately, I hope everyone will leave the meeting understanding it's not about what's best for me, whatever. It's about our kids. What do we want to do for our kids? What are we willing to invest for our kids? Yeah, we think about what's happened in the past. That's for me, that's the wrong way to look. If it's time to do something, let's do something. Yeah, we got to figure out what the right thing is to do. And I don't think you'll see any $40 million or $30 million proposals out there. Will you see one for $20 million? Maybe. Maybe you'll see one for 15. Maybe you'll see one for 12 that gives an opportunity for another 8 on the top of that. I mean, there's all kinds of ways. And by the way, once you decide on a number, then you can decide how long you want to take that payoff. Now, obviously, the longer you wait to pay it off, the more interest you spend. So in the long run, you spend more money. But the notion that is the time right, maybe we make that time period of paying off a bond longer for right now. And then maybe we'll have an opportunity when things improve, if they were to improve, if we get that NIACOR, if we get that extra $300 million valuation, then we do something maybe that makes more financial sense to pay that loan off. But the bottom line is, we have an urgency for our children that are in our school right now. And it boils down to each one of us to make a decision. Well, what do I want to support for those kids? You've been a great group. I'm very appreciative of your attendance and your thoughts, and we'll continue to try to keep you informed as best we can. The March board meeting will be an important one to make some decisions, and we'll see what happens from there. Okay, thank you very much.